Somebody once told me that the greatest thing you can do in science is to fail, categorically fail. Because if you categorically fail, then you wipe the slate clean and everybody can move forwards. And I think we do have to recognize when something has failed and when we can then move forwards. When an idea has failed, when a drug has failed, when a vaccine candidate has failed, and not keep pushing it just for the sake of whether it's ego, whether it's the Concord fallacy that you've invested so much, you have to keep going because you've got that far. And actually, really what you would best do economically is to drop it. I certainly get the impression from my reading of malaria as a broad field, is there are ideas that are still prevalent which probably need to be dropped, and that would move everybody forwards, and actually it would be a game changer.
The funding continues to be really low for malaria research, and unfortunately that's really a consequence of the fact that the most affected populations are not in the Western world. I think that's absolutely clear. I think if malaria is killing 300,000 people a year in America, then we'd have a very aggressive response, or in Western Europe. So I think that clearly the fact that it's sort of out of sight, affecting the poorest nations, clearly holds back major international efforts. I think there's been some analysis of what it would actually cost to really effectively eliminate malaria, or really bring it down to very low levels, and they think that it's probably around the $6 billion a year, but I think at the moment we're close to $2 billion. So I do think it's a scalable problem. I think if there were enough investment, actually we really could pretty much eliminate malaria. I do think that the major problem we have is inadequate funding.
Malaria is a very complicated organism. It's a eukaryote, it's not a prokaryote, so it's got a much bigger genome, and it's got this complicated life cycle where at every stage it completely changes its surface antigen, so the body makes an immune response to one stage that's not going to be at all useful for another stage. So it's very complicated, and drugs have all mostly targeted blood stages. But I think there are probably, and blood stages, because the parasite burden is so huge, these parasites generate an enormous amount of allelic diversity, and so it's hard to make a vaccine to a moving target. But now they're finding some proteins and some, host pathogen interactions on a molecular level that may be constant and may be required, and these could be great vaccine candidates. I think in terms of a vaccine, we need to target all three stages. We need to target the sporozoites, the pre-erythrocytic stages, the blood stages, and then the gametocytes that are then transferred to the mosquito. I mean, that's a great target also. And if you can combine a vaccine, then you can have leakage at each stage, but overall sort of maybe certainly achieve control, better control, and possibly elimination.
Clearly we need a vaccine out there and licensed to really make a difference for sick children. But I think we shouldn't be afraid of saying, that when that vaccine is out there, whether it's RTSS or whatever it is, that our next sort of step along the way has to be a really rationally thought out, apolitical vaccine that works.
There's tremendous will on the scientific community's part, and malaria in particular, I feel, is a field that really has a lot of commitment, a lot of very committed scientists working really hard.
I think we have to raise our own bar in terms of the quality and the rigor of cell biological research. I think there's no excuse now